Good morning. I'm Anna Marie de la Vega. This is Focus. Thank you so much for joining us. We take a closer look at people, places, and things right here in our own community, and this is definitely one that deserves a spotlight. It's the Down Syndrome Association of Middle Tennessee, DSAMT, and we have the executive director with us today, Alecia Talbot. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
And also Ron's mom.
Yes.
Now, explain to people why it's important that you're Ron's mom and what that has to do with anything.
Well, Ron is now 16, but 16 years ago, when he was born, we found out that he had Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so, like many other parents, I quickly became an advocate and community volunteer to make sure that the community he was growing up in was accepting and welcoming and loving.
Was it then? And is it now?
To some degree. There's always change. And that's what our job is really to continue to move forward. We think every individual with Down syndrome deserves to lead an extraordinary life. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, they need to have access to a quality education, the right supports, parents who know how to support them and encourage them to meet their goals. Mm-hmm. They need jobs. They need housing. And so the association helps with all of those things and more.
Give us a little bit of an idea what a quality education looks like. Is it different from someone who doesn't have Down syndrome?
I think it does to a small degree. The reality is individuals with Down syndrome often need extra assistance. They learn a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And so educators need to know what those learning styles look like and how to best educate them. Mm-hmm. And all students have a right to be educated in the general education classroom to the maximum extent that's possible. And so there's a lot of work that still has to be done in educating teachers and helping support schools so that they can do the best job they possibly can and that those students can really thrive with their typically developing peers. For example, we know that kids with Down syndrome or really any disability actually perform better when they're educated in the same environment with their non-disabled peers. Mm-hmm. But we also know that their peers actually score better ultimately when they're exposed to and educated with people who have disabilities.
I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you say people with Down syndrome learn differently?
Yes.
Like a lot of us do, I guess. But is there a specific thing that teachers need to know and that they have to be educated on? Well,
kids with Down syndrome tend to learn visually. So it's very different than just listening to a lecture.
Yeah.
The visual component is very important. They're also very active learners, so hands-on things, using manipulatives, count the pumpkin seeds, count the spiders like we do with Ron, those types of things. And also, it's a very relational piece. People with Down syndrome tend to be very empathetic and really understand social cues very well. Whoa. And that relational piece is very key to the motivation. And so there's a lot to be learned. There's lots of strategies that are great for everybody and every student.
Yeah.
And when I teach educators about some of these tricks, they're always surprised when I say, try this one on your husband.
Like what? Give me one. Alecia.
Lots of those. Very simple things. Some of those are nothing more than starting with something very easy. Give me a high five. Tell me your name. Give me a kiss. Good morning. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a couple of those so you can build some momentum, right? So you're building your relationship. Give me a kiss. Give me a high five, and that makes people feel good. And you're much more likely then, whenever the actual demand comes, to finish the worksheet, take out the garbage, fix the disposal, whatever that is.
I think Alecia has a side gig coming. Hi, honey, give me a high five. He'd be like, what? Yep. That's great. So part of it is something that we all could use in our daily lives. It's something that, as you said, all the kids in the class could stand to have brought to their world.
Absolutely.
So you teach teachers how to teach.
I teach them not necessarily how to teach, but how to improve the outcomes for students with Down syndrome or students with exceptional learning differences. So if you have any student who struggles with focus or a student who struggles with transitions or with behavior, then this could apply to any student in any classroom.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. What about focus?
Well, a lot of times it's a matter of having some fidgets, maybe. It could be that there's a need that they just hasn't been met. So maybe this kid needs to take a break. Maybe they need to walk down the hall first. It really will depend on the kid.
Whoa.
I think every student really deserves an individual education plan, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because all of us learn a little bit differently.
Yeah. Can teachers handle that? That's a lot.
My personal opinion is that none of the schools are really fully, it's not that they're not capable, because every teacher I've ever met really, really wants to do it. I don't think that our educational system today is really set up for that kind of individualized attention.
Okay, that makes sense. So parents who find out that their child has Down syndrome, where do you start? Where do they start?
Hopefully their first call is to the Down Syndrome Association, where we can connect them with parents who have already been there and done that. A lot of times there's lots of questions, a lot of fears, because there's still a lot of misinformation, I think, that's out there about Down syndrome, and just a lot of the unknown. A lot of people, when they're pregnant with a child with Down syndrome, don't already know people with Down syndrome, or maybe the people they know are older. So they weren't raised when all of the supports and benefits were there. So, we meet them. The first thing we do is say, congratulations, you're having a baby. That's worthy of celebrating. And most parents will sort of grieve the child they thought they were going to have.
Yeah.
And then we just sort of help them on that journey towards celebration with a parent mentor, a baby shower. We expose them to other people with Down syndrome. We then train those parents. Here are some things that will help you to best raise your child.
What are some of the fears and what are some of the misconceptions that new parents might go into when they hear that they have a child with Down syndrome or they have a baby on the way?
The number one fear that parents have is that other people will not love and respect and include my child the way they do every other child.
Whoa.
That feeling of that child being left out.
I don't want unhappiness for my child, and I already might see it ahead.
Yes, I think that, and the only other thing is really, what might they not do or what might they struggle with? So I had a mom one time say, will she want to have tea parties with her sisters? And I said, absolutely. She might not want tea, She might want to have a soda party.
Yeah.
It might be a little different, but yes, she's going to want to go to birthday parties and all of the things that every other human being wants.
Yeah. What are some of the differences that parents might need to be ready for? Like, give us a little more a picture of what's going on with a parent and a kid.
Sure. About half of kids with Down syndrome will have a congenital heart defect. Fortunately, today, most of those are correctable with surgery. Some go away on their own, but that's a big fear. So there are some other medical conditions that are a little bit more common in kids with Down syndrome, and that's a lot of times that fear takes over everything else when your baby is that vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's very scary.
And so how do you help parents through that?
Well, we have a program called the Sunshine Program, actually. So in addition to the parent first call program, when you have that diagnosis, the Sunshine Program also supports you in helping you maybe to find a doctor who is very experienced, connecting you with other parents who have already been through, say, heart surgery or an additional diagnosis. And then we actually visit you. We have some Sunshine ambassadors, some little kids with Down syndrome and their parents, and they go to the hospitals and we give them Sunshine bags. Big yellow bag. It has a quilt usually from the Music City Quilt Guild, who makes and donates those to us.
Yeah,
sometimes it's snacks. Sometimes mom says we don't have a decent pillow in the hospital. I mean, no matter what it is, it's just some way to bring them a little comfort and sunshine and let them know they're not alone.
I think that's one of the worst things that can happen to human beings is for them to feel alone in their world when there's something that's adverse or they feel is going to be a big challenge. They feel alone.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question that raising a child with different needs can be very difficult. I know I've had some days where it is just the world seems overwhelming.
Yeah.
But when you do have the support of other parents, somebody else who's been there who can say, it's okay. let me get down in the bottom of the well with you and hold your hand. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference in the world. I mean, I can't solve most of the problems that other parents have, but I can sit down in the bottom of the pit when you're at your worst and say, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
We get a lot of calls like that, and it makes a big difference.
What are some of the issues that they might encounter? Are kids with Down syndrome excitable? Are they very reactive for different things when you're out and about and you're trying to maybe go shopping, go to a movie? You know, what are parents dealing with?
Honestly, kids with Down syndrome are more like everybody else than they are different. You know, they want to explore. They might have trouble communicating that they want to go look over there in the grocery store. So, like, my son would just bolt.
I'm going this way.
He didn't have the words to say, hey, Mom, can we go look at the cereal?
Yes.
So he would see the cereal aisle, or didn't, and that's what went through his mind, and he would just take off. So that's just one example of the kinds of things. But really, they're just like us.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. You've got the parents you're helping, the education that you're helping. What about jobs and housing? So Ron is 16 now. Your son is 16.
Yes.
Is he working yet?
No, he is not working yet.
Why you say it like that?
Well, he's in school.
Yes.
Which is great.
Yes.
We do envision that he will have a job one day. He likes to help. He likes to get involved. I think he's either going to have a pizza shop or work in a Halloween store, because those are his two passions.
I wondered, you said he counting spiders with him or something.
Everybody who knows me or knows Ron knows that Halloween is his big thing.
That's his jam.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've seen him in costumes online or something. I feel like I've seen something like that.
Oodles of costumes, oodles of animatronics. He decorated his Christmas tree already, which is black. And it has his medals that he's earned over the years. And it also has a scary mask at the top and all of his scary stuff on it. It has some spiders and some gloves, werewolf gloves.
Oh, my goodness. Sounds like he's a very creative young man.
He is. Both of my kids are very creative. So,
and you brought me some art.
Yeah.
When you showed up today. And this was created by someone who has Down syndrome. Apparently, you guys are helping to encourage their creativity.
Absolutely.
How do you do that? With teachers, with education? Do you have programs? Do you help parents figure out how to do that?
Boy, that's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of questions in there.
I'm sorry. I know.
Let me think.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Let me think of the best way to answer that. So we do support individuals with Down syndrome, particularly those who have their own businesses, in that we use their products. We purchase their products at full price. I don't ever ask somebody with Down syndrome to donate. That's your business. You need to earn money. We want to support you. Yeah. And they're all over the country. By and large, a lot of those families have started their own businesses for their child with Down syndrome because the job opportunities just aren't available, or they're not available with the right supports that their child needs in order to be successful. Yeah. Right? In a regular competitive work environment. So we do support those businesses by, we allow them to come to our events and sell their items, and we purchase their items and give those to parents and as thank you gifts and that sort of thing. But we also support parents when they are looking for competitive work employment. We do have an employment program. We've worked with a number of companies over the years to say, do you know what the value is of hiring somebody with Down syndrome? We had a company, Aaron's, who rents furniture and things. They had a regional vice president who came to us and said, I think I'd like to hire some people with Down syndrome. And so we helped provide them. We gave some supports, gave them some tips, and then I would check in periodically. I sat down one time thinking, well, what else is there that I can do to make this successful for you? And he said, they're doing fantastic. What I could never have imagined is the productivity and the attitude of my other employees just by the presence of them being here, because they're on time, they're diligent, they're loyal. They might struggle, but they don't stop trying until they get it right. Yeah. And being around that is very powerful and very motivating.
That's amazing. I love that. I just got goosebumps. If you're just joining us, this is Focus. I'm Anna Marie, and we're talking with Alecia Talbot, the Executive Director of DSAMT, the Down Syndrome Association of Middle Tennessee. We're talking about jobs and parenting and teaching, and what about housing? So what are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are you able to help with?
So individuals with Down syndrome today are living into their 60s. And so they're outliving their parents.
Oh.
So
yeah.
where those adults are going to live, there are more and more who are going to have to find somewhere to live.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a concern of every parent who has a child with Down
yeah.
syndrome. And there really aren't very many affordable housing options that are available.
Right.
There are a lot of groups that are working on it. And we partner with those other organizations. Housing isn't something that we offer, but we're able to support those organizations that are doing things, positive things for housing.
Yeah. I think that's a concern for every parent.
Oh, yeah.
Is what's going to happen to the kid after I'm gone, with special needs or not.
Yes.
I know that's the same with my stepson. We're like, we got to get him because he is special needs. And we're like, we need to get him in a place where he's safe and happy and independent. And he's in an apartment now. And I don't know, I think that's since you and I have spoken last. He's in an apartment now. He's got 2 roommates, and there's someone there 24/7 to kind of oversee and if they need help. And it's amazing to see him blossom.
Yes.
It's amazing to see him thrive and just learn and be independent. And he calls us a couple times a day, and we'll go, what are you up to? He goes, just got back. And that is amazing to hear. That's wonderful. He's just out there running around and going to stores and stuff, and he's just in heaven. It's a big step.
Yeah. And
I know that if you're working with somebody who helps make that happen, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
What else do we need to make sure and tell people about the Down Syndrome Association, or about kids, about what help they can get? Now, you mentioned that they live into their 60s.
Yeah.
Many live into their 60s. It was not always so.
No, around the turn of the century, turn of the century. That's
Wow.
how old I am. In the early 1900s, the life expectancy was only about 9. In the 80s, it was around 20. And due to a lot of advancements in medical technology and treatments, they're living longer and longer. We also think that the inclusion, the ending of the institutions, and moving into community and home-based type programs have really been beneficial.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think about it. For anyone, they tell you, no matter where you are in life, you need to connect with other people. You need a purpose. You need goals. You need dreams. That's all part of just being a happy human being.
Yeah.
And they're no different in that aspect.
Yes, exactly. What else do we need to tell people about?
Well, we're gearing up for our Santa visits. Do you want me to talk about that now?
Santa visits?
Yes.
Yes.
Prior to COVID and the pandemic, we used to host a very large holiday party. And families would come, and Santa would be there, and there would be presents and food and all of that. And when COVID came, we were looking for a way we just sort of went 360 on everything. And we couldn't be in person. And so we recruited some volunteer Santas. Mostly they were dads of children with Down syndrome. And we got them Santa suits, and we got gifts. And they went directly to those houses of people who have Down syndrome. And they brought presents to the child with Down syndrome of absolutely any age, because who doesn't love a present and a visit from the big jolly man?
Yeah.
And also for their siblings who were kids, right? I mean, siblings, you can't leave them out.
Oh, no.
So we did that for the years of COVID, and every year it grew and grew. So we have almost 200 families that have signed up last year. And so we expect at least that many to sign up this year. We have more than 20 volunteer Santas over 2 weekends. And we go anywhere in Middle Tennessee where there's a child with Down syndrome.
Oh, my goodness.
And everybody gets a present, and they get that personal visit.
Yeah.
And we considered going back to the holiday party, but the pictures and the videos of these kids when Santa comes right to you and you get that moment all to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't live in a world where everybody takes their kid to the mall anymore, right? To see Santa and waiting in line. And it's all different. But this is very personal. And the Santas sign up year over year, and the Santas are crying, right? I mean, it's like the Santas enjoy this just as much as these kids do.
Yeah. So what do you need from us? How can we support that?
Well, we always need contributions to help get those gifts dry clean the Santa suits. You know,
all those tears washed out.
Make repairs, buy new beards, all that sort of thing. So anybody can contribute specifically to the Santa visits on our website, which is somethingextra.org. You can just go to the donate button. You'll see a beautiful picture of a little boy visiting Santa, and you just see the joy on his face. And you can just make a donation there, and we'll ensure that money goes specifically to those houses.
So somethingextra.org, that came from the source of Down syndrome? Is that the right way to put it?
Yes, if you have Down syndrome, so you and I, we don't have Down syndrome. We have 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs. If you have Down syndrome, you have an extra copy of your 21st chromosome. So you have 47. So you have one extra.
You have something extra.
You have a little something extra. And we use that because it's such a positive, it's not a negative.
Yeah.
It was named Down syndrome after Dr. Langdon Down. And we've always sort of, nobody it's down. And it's not. Down syndrome in and of itself is a little bit different, but it's beautiful. Yeah. Most of us who have kids with Down syndrome, we wouldn't take Down syndrome away if we could.
What is it like getting together with someone else who has a child with Down syndrome? Do you tell each other stories, or do you start the story and they just go, oh, I know, and then blah, blah, blah? Can they finish it? Are the experiences sometimes similar?
Oh, absolutely. I remember talking about, there's a lot of occupational therapy there was for my son. People with Down syndrome often have low muscle tone, and it can be all over. It can be in specific areas, but the therapies for speech and occupational and fine motor are pretty common.
Okay.
And one of the things that they would do in therapy is have them squeeze like a Windex bottle. And they put colored water in it, and they would spray it because that builds those hand muscles that they need to be able to write.
Yeah.
And my son, in his infinite wisdom, had done that at therapy and come home and gotten a hold of a Windex bottle and proceeded to spray that all over our widescreen TV, which, by the way, ruins it.
I didn't. Oh, no.
And I remember being somewhere and talking about this horrific experience because it's been a long time, and TVs were a lot more expensive than they are now. And I think 3 other moms said, "Oh, my son has ruined 2 televisions." I was like, you're just you're part of a club. We refer to ourselves as the lucky few. Down syndrome is the most commonly occurring chromosomal condition, but there's still only about 1 in 700 live births that produces a child with Down syndrome. So as parents, when we find out somebody else is having a child with Down syndrome, we can't wait. Let's bring you in. You've now joined the cool club.
When you have the walks to raise money for DSAMT, how many people attend?
I think we had at least 4,000 this year.
Holy cow.
Our Extra Mile is the biggest Down syndrome awareness event in the state.
Tell people what that's like. So when we talk about it next year, they have a picture of what that looks like.
Well, anybody registers and creates a team. Most of them are families, but you don't have to know someone in particular, but you can. You create a team and you fundraise. You don't have to fundraise to come and enjoy the day. We always have an extraordinary guest with Down syndrome. We had Madison Tevlin, the actress, this year.
And what movie was she in?
Champions with Woody Harrelson.
Okay, so I have to watch that. I have not seen that yet. Okay.
It's fantastic. But we have a live band. There's food. Families set up tents. It's sort of like a big carnival family reunion. And then teams line up and they walk a very short kind of a parade. Some people are, having their very first walk. So babies in a baby holder or in a stroller. And some of our participants have been doing this for 26 years.
Oh, wow.
And so they have 26 medals that they get at the end of the walk.
Oh, my goodness.
So the Mount Juliet Police Department for the past 12 years has been very generous in coming, and they give out the medals. So it's a wonderful experience.
I've seen some photos of that, and you can tell the officer's so proud to be giving that medal to that kid.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Part of that is we always want to have somebody special giving out the award at the end, your medal.
Yeah.
But the other part is, one, so that our children are exposed to first responders in a non-traumatic emergency situation, and also so that those officers are exposed to our children in a non-emergent non-traumatic situation, so that hopefully if there were to be down the road a wreck or something happen, that they have some experience.
Wow.
And that our kids are not afraid.
Yeah. You mentioned people who have businesses, families, people with Down syndrome. Do you have a list of those as we go into the holidays? Is there a list somewhere? Is there something we could look for in particular to possibly support those during the holidays?
Yes. If you on our website, which is somethingextra.org, if you go to ways to help, it'll pop up and you can go down to Down syndrome businesses.
Wow.
And there is a very lengthy list of businesses, some of which are here in Middle Tennessee and some of which are all across the country.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Alecia Talbot, the Executive Director of Down Syndrome Association of Middle Tennessee, DSAMT. We have just a couple more minutes. What else have I neglected to ask about that you feel is important to add?
I think what's on a lot of people's mind since we've had a change in administration is what's coming down the pike from an advocacy perspective or a policy perspective.
Yeah.
And our association is working in collaboration with statewide disability organizations as well as national disability organizations just to prepare. I mean, there's always going to be changes when there's a change in administration. And so we don't exactly know what's coming down the pike. There's a lot of rumors. And we just want to be prepared so that we can advocate for our loved ones with Down syndrome, whatever those changes might be. So we're keeping our eyes open and our ears open, and we'll be ready to go into action next year once some actual policies and plans are announced. So we have a policy network here in Tennessee that we organize, which is advocates, parents, community members from across the state. So that when there is an action alert or something that you need to contact your representative or congressman, that we have that information there and make it easy for you to be able to do that.
Would that be something like a decrease in benefits or something of Social Security benefits or decrease in something like that? Is that what kind of the fear is?
Yeah, I think the fear is that there's going to be some changes to Medicaid. And oftentimes when people think about the government cutting, there's been a lot of talk about let's make it more efficient, let's cut them things. Historically, disabilities are at the top of that cutting list.
Wow.
I don't think intentionally, but changing how that looks. And that always creates some fear and anxiety. It may turn out better. It may turn out not so better. But we won't know anything until they make some announcements of their actual plans.
And then you'll figure out ways to deal with it.
And then we'll figure out how to fix it and make it the best we possibly can.
Thank you so much for what you do.
It's my pleasure. It's really an honor. I meet families at their best days and on their worst days sometimes. And being able to be there for another mom, another dad, another grandma, or a sibling, and be able to help them through something is tremendous. It's people will say, oh, I don't know how you do what you do. And I go, I have the best gig ever, right? I mean, it is.
It seems that God made you specifically for this because you are just a ray of sunshine. Thank you for what you do.
You're very sweet.
Alecia Talbot, Executive Director of Down Syndrome Association of Middle Tennessee, DSAMT. We'll put the information online, but also just remember it's somethingextra.org if you want to go ahead and check that out right now. Make sure you join us again next week, please. I'm Anna Marie, and that's Focus.